Okay, so good morning to all of you, and I think this is my first meet with you in the theory class. So RSC has covered up to the transport layer, and I will start with the network layer of the protocol stack, and from that aspect, I will try to conclude this course after moving to the MAC layer. So, just before starting to the network layer, let me briefly tell about or briefly a brief recap about what you have learned till now, and just my way of interpreting it, so that things get clear to you as I progress with the rest of the topic. So, in case of computer network, what we have seen that this individual, so whenever we are interconnecting individual computers together, we gradually increase its complexity, and as we gradually increase its complexity, historically people started to adapt a different module within the operating system kernel. And that way it has built up this entire end-to-end network protocol stack. Well, so whenever you have learned initially about the history of the internet, in case of the history of the internet, you have seen that, well, you can, if you want to just interconnect two computers, you can have a kind of communication media between them. At that time, people have not thought of about wireless, they thought of about the wired network. So you can have a wire, you can connect two computer with each other, and then these two computer can talk to each other. And the requirement is only at the communication level. It is all about that how you are converting the data to signal and then transferring the signal over the wire to the different machine. And that has given the initial development of the network interface card, the different kind of digital to analog modulation technique, different kind of digital modulation technique through which you can convert the analog, you can convert the digital data to the analog signal, and so on. And that has basically the part of the physical layer of the entire network protocol stack, which mostly deals with the hardware. And then as we make the computer a bit more complex, that means rather than two machines, say three or multiple machines are interconnected with each other and they want to talk to each other. It is something like that. I have put some 10 of people in the same room and ask you to talk to each other. Now, if everyone start talking with each other, there would be a noise in the room. So, because it is a kind of shared channel through the same where everyone wants to talk to each other. So that means you need to have some kind of scheduling that, well, 1 and 2 can talk right now. After that, 3 and 4 will talk. After that, 5 and 6 will talk. Something like that. Some kind of scheduling you need to design. And that given rise to the data link layer. So the data link layer basically are interfacing between the software and the hardware component of the network, which controls that, well, how the computer is accessing the physical media. Well, so that was the data link layer, which we'll talk later on, maybe near the end of this course. And then we have made the network more larger. Well, now it is something like that. I have 10 people in one room, 10 people in another room, 10 people in third room, and that way I have 100 different rooms. And people from one room wants to talk to the people at another room. Okay, so basically you need to find out a path that how you can reach from, say, room A to room B. Well, so you need something in the network term what we call as the routing over the network, and that has given birth of the next layer of the protocol stack, that is another module within the kernel, which is the network layer. Well, and once we have the network layer, then we started thinking about how to improve the performance, because my data communication between any two machines over the globe is now solved. Now I need to improve the performance, and for that we have started developing about the transport layer, and finally different kind of applications, HTTP, DNS, all these different kind of applications over the network, and that has given birth to the application layer, or mostly the applications on top of the network. So that way in TCP/IP protocol stack, we have 5 different layers: application, transport, network, data link, and finally physical. And just for your convenience, because primarily the most of the students in this course, although students from other departments have taken the course, but mostly from the computer science background students, and also for the other department students, the applications are the most common thing through which we interact with the network. Okay, so that is the reason we started with the application layer in this course, although most of the networking books start talking about the lower layer of the protocol stack, but we started in a reverse way so that it becomes easier for everyone to understand different concepts. Now, up to transport layer, what you have seen that we have looked into that how we can set up different end-to-end goals in the network, and that end-to-end goal, how we can establish, how we can set up end-to-end flow, how I can control the data rate between two computers, and then if there is a congestion in the network, how we can control the congestion, how we can handle the loss by positive synchronization of the sequence numbers. So all these different things we have learned. Well, and while doing that, as I was mentioning that as we make the network more complex, we are moving from the physical layer to the data link layer to the network layer and so on. And this particular complex architecture of the network that we see right now, it is basically based on experience and the requirements. And this entire architecture, it is not like that it was developed on a single day. Over the years, it has got matured. Even very recently, people actually decoupled all these different layers and they look into every individual protocol as a kind of services which are being provided on top of the network in forms of virtualization. If time permits, we'll talk about that particular architecture on which we are gradually moving. But broadly, based on the people's experience, the network has become more and more complex. And as we have, and every layer we are iterating this part that where different component of the networks are implemented. Well, so this applications runs as an application program on your computer, and then the transport network and part of the data link layer is implemented in software. That is the kernel part of your protocol stack. Then remaining part of the data link layer and some part of the physical layers are implemented in the firmware of the device driver. So whenever you are putting up a new network interface card in your machine, you need to install the firmware. So that firmware basically make a bridge between the operating system kernel and the corresponding network hardware that you are using. And then finally, the hardware contains the rest of the part of the physical layer. Well, so in transport layer, we have seen that there are different services which are being provided. You have seen broadly two different protocols, UDP, user datagram protocol, and TCP, transmission control protocol, where UDP just ensures a kind of end-to-end packet delivery without any additional service. TCP provides different kind of services like connection establishment, reliable data delivery, flow control, congestion control. So typically in TCP, you have seen that we collectively control the end-to-end flow with the help of a combined flow and congestion control algorithm based on this AIMD principle, and then ordered packet delivery. Well, so that is also a part of your flow control. So that way different services are provided by the transport layer. And one of the major objective of the transport layer is that to make the data transmission reliable. So that means whatever things are being sent from a sender, exactly you are going to receive the same thing at the receiver. Well, so that is the objective of the transport layer. But whenever we are going below transport layer, that means the network layer, the objective of the network layer is just like a simple post office. Okay, so you can think of the transport layer as a registered post that will guarantee that if you are posting your letter in one post office, it will be surely being delivered to your final destination. Well, but this network layer simply works like an unreliable service. So its task is just to find out the path and over this complex network, and whenever you are visualizing the network layer, you can think of that entire network in the form of a graph. Okay, so it is something like that. Every node in the network, whatever it be a end host, or whether it is a router, or whether it is a switch, L3 switch, which supports the network layer of the protocol stack, you can think them as a node. Well, and the individual links, whether that can be a wired link or a wireless link, you can think of it as an edge of that graph. So this entire network, you can just visualize it in the form of a graph. Now, whenever you are visualizing the entire network in the form of a graph, the main task of the network layer is to find out a path between two end hosts and forward the packet through that path. Okay, and that path can be found out based on different criteria. Well, so we use the term as shortest path, but what is mean by shortest, that is debatable, and that actually depends from network to network. The shortest can be in terms of number of hops. The shortest can be in terms of transmission delay. The shortest can be in terms of the maximum bandwidth that is being provided. Well, so that way we can define the shortest path. But broadly, it is between given two nodes on a network graph. You find out the shortest path, and over that shortest path, you forward the data packet. Well, so that is the theoretical basis of the network layer. Now, what is the practical basis? Well, so if I want to implement this forwarding, finding out the shortest path and forwarding, what I have to think of? There are two aspects. One is, first, you need to understand, or you need to identify individual hosts in the network, well, so that you can say that, well, you move from this host A to host B to host C to host D to finally reach host T. Well, so you should give one address or one unique address to every individual host in the network. And the second requirement is to design the algorithm through which you will find out the shortest path. Well, so that way, the broad functionality of the network layer is datagram delivery, which is unreliable. TCP provides reliability on top of that you have already learned. But while supporting datagram delivery, broadly we need to think of two aspects. One is addressing, how to uniquely identify every individual host in the network. And the second part is routing, how to route a packet from one known host to another known host. Well, so in the entire discussion of this network layer of the protocol stack, we'll primarily look into that how do we do addressing and how do we do routing. Okay. By the way, just a kind of reminder for all of you that while going forward the slides and the lecture, anytime if you have any doubt, just unmute yourself and ask the question. Okay, I will prefer that because I am teaching over a full screen, so that's why I will not be able to see if you are posting a question over a chat box. But if you feel that, well, if I answer the question at the end, then you can put it over the chat box. I will be happy to pick it up at the end. Well, but the preferable mode would be you will just unmute yourself and stop me and ask your question. Okay, so feel free to put a break whenever you want. Well, it is not like that you cannot disturb me in between. I do not feel disturbed. Okay, so I will be happy if you ask questions. Well, and there is no silly question. Whatever is coming to your mind, feel free to ask it. Okay, fine. Now, say, first let us look into the addressing part of it. Now, what is the requirement for addressing? Well, so that is the first thing. Try to map the scenario in the terms of the way we put the address of individuals in our society. Okay, so the computer network is nothing but it has borrowed the idea from our society. Well, so for example, I want to give my IIT Kharagpur address. How will I put my IIT Kharagpur address. Say I want to put my department address. So I will put first my name, Sandeep Chakraborty. After that, my office number, CSE 311. After that, Department of Computer Science and Engineering. Then IIT Kharagpur. Then Kharagpur. Maybe a pin code 721302. Then West Bengal. Then India. Say if I want to identify myself in the global context. Now just think of that how that entire addressing has been done. So starting from my name, I have actually hierarchically increased the scope. Well, so if I just look into the address in a reverse order, it will say that I reside in India. Where in India? In the state of West Bengal. Where in West Bengal? In the city of Kharagpur. Where in Kharagpur? In IIT Kharagpur. Where within IIT Kharagpur? In the Department of Computer Science and Engineering. Where within Department of Computer Science and Engineering? At the office number CSE 311. Okay. So starting from a broader scope, I can hierarchically move to a smaller scope. And this entire hierarchical space give my entire address. Well, and how does it help? So if you think about the letter delivery or postcard delivery perspective, so it will say one of my friend from US want to send me a postcard. So it will say that you send the postcard to India. Well, once the postcard reaches to India, then say the central post office, say in the GPO, it will say you send it to the state of West Bengal. Say it will be sent to the head post office of West Bengal, say maybe in some post office at Kolkata. Then it will again look my rest of the address. It will find out I am from Kharagpur. So it will say that you send it to the head post office of IIT Kharagpur. It will go to IIT, you will send it to the head post office of Kharagpur. It will be sent to Kharagpur. Then it will see that within Kharagpur it is IIT Kharagpur. So send it to the Kharagpur Technology Post Office. That is our IIT Kharagpur Post Office. It will reach to the IIT Kharagpur Post Office. The postmaster sees that I need to deliver it in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering. So the peon goes to Department of Computer Science and Engineering, drop the letter in the office. Office says that, well, it is for CSE 311 where someone named Sandeep Chakraborty resides. So send it to CSE 311. Okay. So that way you can hierarchically decode it and find out what is the exact place where you need to deliver the post. Well, so in the same way, in the network, we assign the address in such a way so that hierarchically I can decide where to deliver a data packet. Okay, so that is the kind of broad objective. Now to put up that broad objective, what I have to do, I need to design or I need to find out some kind of hierarchical address space. Okay, so the same hierarchical address space is basically designed within the network as well. Well, so let us see that how do we design such kind of hierarchical address space in a network context. Okay, now say the network within our computer science and engineering department. Okay, so those who are from the computer science of engineering, you possibly know our lab structure. Well, for others, we have two different software labs. One is in our annex building, which we call as the new software lab or software lab 2. And another one is our old building that we call as the software lab 1 or the old software lab. Okay, just a minute. Let me just take some water. Okay. Now we have multiple computers within each of the software lab. Well, and these computers are typically connected to a layer 2 switch. So that means all these computers are directly connected with each other. So remember, in layer 2, we directly connect the computers together or the machines together. Okay. So within software lab, every machine is connected in layer 2. Within software lab 2, all the machines are connected with each other. Now, how do we connect these two software labs with each other? Through a layer 3 device called a router. Well, now, whenever we are connecting these two software labs together, that comprises my entire CSC network. Well, now within CSC, I have a network. Well, similarly, say in the electrical department, E department, they also have multiple labs. Each lab will have their own network. Well, and they will get interconnected and form a complete network. Well, now I have the CSC network, I have the E network, also the other departments network, the maths, the electronics, the mining, metallurgy, civil, well, not taking the name of each of the department, but every department has their own network. Well, so these networks are interconnected with each other and form the IIT KGP network. Well, now every IIT has their own network. IIT KGP has their own network. Similarly, IIT Bhubaneswar has their own network. Well, IIT Guwahati has their own network. IIT Patna has their own network. I'm just naming the IITs at the eastern region because they are directly interconnected. So they basically interconnect with each other and form a network which we call as the RNet. Well, so all the IITs are actually not only the IITs, basically all the educational institutes of India are part of this RNet network. The full form of RNet is Education and Research Network of India. So all these networks are part of this RNet network. Okay. Then, say the RNet network, that is the Education and Research Network of India, and the BSNL network, not only BSNL, Airtel, all these network, they are interconnected with each other. And basically in India, the global, not the global, the Indian network is basically provided by Bharti Airtel. Well, and they are the part of this Bharti Airtel network. Okay, so BSNL, RNet, everyone they take service from Bharti Airtel. Bharti Airtel is the highest tier network in India. Well, so that way, in a hierarchical way, the network are being formed. So if you look into this right-hand side diagram, so in the right-hand side diagram, it contains a kind of architecture that is being followed. See, these local ISPs are the local internet service providers. So for example, in case of my computer science department, the computer science and engineering is the local internet service provider within computer science and engineering. Well, or maybe the IIT Kharagpur network is one local ISP that provides the network to the IIT Kharagpur residents. These local ISPs are connected to the regional ISPs. ISP, the full form is Internet Service Providers. The local ISPs are connected to the regional ISP. The regional ISPs are connected to the national ISPs. Some regional ISPs might have direct link between them. Well, and then these national ISPs are connected with the tier 1 ISPs. Okay, so these tier 1 ISPs are the ISPs which are globally connecting the network. So if you just do a Wikipedia search, you can find out all the name of all the tier 1 networks, well, which globally provide the internet service. So in India, as I was mentioning, Bharti Airtel is the tier 1 ISP, okay, which provides the internet service to all the service providers within India. Now, in this particular context, we have another terminology that we broadly use while talking about the network layer or about the ISPs, that is called the autonomous system. So what is an autonomous system? An autonomous system is a set of LAN. Now, what is a LAN? A LAN is a basically set of devices with a common layer 3 gateway. So that means the devices are connected via the layer 2 switch, and they have a same gateway through which they will go outside of that network. Right? So for example, our software lab, all the machines are directly interconnected with each other with a layer 2 switch, and one of the dedicated machine that is designated as a gateway, which works like a router. So if I want to send any packet within software lab, I need to forward the packet with that particular gateway. If the software lab wants to send certain packets outside, that need to be forwarded via that particular router, and on that router we call it as a gateway. we call it as a gateway because it works like a gate for a layer 2 network, through which layer 2 network sends packet outside the LAN or takes packet within the LAN. Okay. Now, an autonomous system is a set of LANs for an administrative domain identified by a unique autonomous system number, and the routing policies are controlled by a single administrator. So there is a bit difference between this ISP and AS. It might happen a single ISP is a single AS, but the ISPs basically provide network services to its client. Now, if the client controls a large part of a network, well, the client can design its own policy about how it is going to control the network. So just like the IIT Kharagpur network. Okay. So we have a CIC, Computer and Informatics Centers, and the CIC basically control, or the CIC decides what is going to be the policy within the IIT Kharagpur network. Okay. So that's why IIT Kharagpur network works like an autonomous system. Well, but the policy is determined by the CIC. Software lab or the computer science and engineering department, they might have their own policy, but those policies are very local. Okay, so they do not decide about what is going to be the routing policy, what routing protocol are going to be used, or what is going to be the IP configurations of individual switches. Well, so all these details are provided by CIC. That means CIC is the manager of the entire IIT Kharagpur network. Well, and that way the IIT Kharagpur network works like an autonomous system. Okay, so this is basically the autonomous system graph of India. Well, so you can just go to this link. The slides will be available to you. You can click it, and this APNIC is the network control body of India. It provides, or it controls the network structure. It provides the IP addresses to the individual autonomous systems and all these things. So in APNIC's web, you can look into the different networks, different autonomous system, and you can find out this country graph for India. And you can actually zoom it and find out what are these individual autonomous systems are. And it will be interesting to go to that particular site and find out which one is the IIT Kharagpur network in this entire graph. Okay, so this age which you are seeing here, it is actually all the numbers. The numbers got overlapped with each other, and that way it creates this black border. If you zoom it, you can see individual numbers. You can see certain numbers here like 55824. So 55824 is the basically the number of an autonomous system. So if you click on it, you can get the details. So let me just show it to you once. So APNIC is the Asia specific NIC. It's not coming. This is the autonomous system graph for India. If you just, I hope you can see it. If you just zoom it, you can see all these individual individual autonomous systems here. Okay, so now if you click on one of the autonomous systems, it will show you the details about that autonomous system. let it get loaded. Click somewhere. Yeah, so it shows that it is something like India Times wall tower. Well, so you can actually get the details and how this particular autonomous system is connected. Okay, so it is wall tower at DLF City. Well, uh, and um, then what are the different autonomous system with which it is connected. Well, so all these different data you can actually find out from this particular site. Well, um, so this is another autonomous system called FBSPL. Okay, something like Fastnet broadband service, some broadband service provider. Well, who is providing you the provide the broadband service? Their autonomous system it is. Well, so its detail is given here. So that way, actually, that is actually a kind of exercise for you in this graph, entire graph. Try to find out what is the IIT Kharagpur. Well, or you can just Google it, IIT Kharagpur is number. Autonomous system number. Well, let me just search here. IIT Indian is not sure what name it has provided. I was able to find it out earlier. IIT Kharagpur. Okay. Anyway, means you can find it out. Let us not waste time here. Well, so try to find out that what is the auto. So IIT Kharagpur has a single autonomous system number. So try to find out the autonomous system number of IIT Kharagpur and try to put it here. Okay. And see the details of that IIT Kharagpur. So I remember I once able to find it out from this graph, but I forgot what was the exact number, autonomous system number of IIT Kharagpur. Anyway. So this is actually a kind of good exercise that you can do, and that will actually give you an idea about that in which other autonomous systems or internet service providers network IIT Kharagpur is connected to it. Well, and its entire details about the stuff. Okay. So now, if I just look into the global internet architecture, so in terms of global internet architecture, at the bottom we have the internet users, the individual users like us. We are connected to some Tier 3 network. Well, so this Tier 3 network, that is the kind of internet service providers from where we are directly getting the network. So for example, Jio is an internet service provider, Airtel is an internet service provider, and typically these are the Tier 3 internet service providers. Okay. They get connected to the Tier 2 ISPs, and finally Tier 2 ISPs are getting connected with the Tier 1 ISP. And in between, there are certain things like internet exchange point. So these internet exchange points are kind of high-ended small-scale ISPs, which actually create a direct connection between two different ISPs. Okay. So ideally, in a general term, the internet users are connected with the Tier 3 ISP, then the Tier 3 ISPs are connected to our tier 2 ISPs, and the tier 2 ISPs are connected with tier 1 ISP. But multiple ISPs may also get connected with each other. Okay, that we call as the Internet Exchange Point or IXP. So this IXPs actually build up a kind of peering relationship between two different ISP tiers, through which you can send data from one tier to another tier. Well, so for example, if Airtel has an agreement with Jio, well, I do not know whether they have an agreement or not. But if assume that Airtel has an agreement with Jio, if Airtel makes an agreement with Jio that well to send the data from Airtel to Jio or vice versa, will not go through any tier 1 ISPs, rather will directly send the data from to each other. Then they can set up an internet exchange point through which they can transfer the data between each other. Okay, and there are this point of presence. This point of presence is basically a kind of local internet service providers which provides the broadband services to the local network. Okay, so they do not connect to other ISPs or other network. They basically just kind of provides a kind of small scale self network. Okay. Now, the idea of this peering between ISPs, as I was mentioning, that internet exchange points, they set up the peering between multiple different ISPs. When multiple ISPs are connected via ISP, we call them ISPs as the network service provider or NSP, because through that ISPs you can create a network between the ISPs through which you can send data from one ISP to another ISP and vice versa. So there can be a lot of peering connections from this internet exchange point. And then there can be the regional ISPs which are getting services from the NSPs. And the regional ISPs can have private peering among themselves. And finally, the local ISPs, they connected with the regional ISPs and we get the data from these local ISPs. Or we get the network connections from these local ISPs. Now, this is basically the communication path when two machines in the internet communicate with each other. Say these two machines want to talk to each other. So you send the data to your local ISP. The local ISP will send the data to the regional ISP. The regional ISP will send it to the national ISP. The national ISP will send it to some of the transit ISPs. The transit ISPs means the tier 1 ISPs. Then the transit ISPs sends the data directly among themselves. Then it will again come to another national ISP, through that the regional ISP to the local ISP, and finally your destination machine. So that is the kind of end-to-end path which is being followed whenever you are sending the data from one machine to another machine. Now, sometime it might happen that these national ISPs create peering relationship among themselves through some internet exchange point. If that is the case, then you do not need to go to transit ISP. You can possibly say from this national ISP, if you want to send data to that national ISP, and they have a peering, direct peering among themselves or a private peering among themselves, you can just directly send the data from this national ISP to that national ISP. Okay, so that kind of things are also possible. Okay, so this is the broad idea about how the global internet is connected. So let me know if you have any doubt up to this point. Let me see if there are any questions in the chat box. I do not see any questions. So any doubt from any one of you? Okay. So if not, then let us start with our next part. So that is that how do we typically provide the IP addressing? Okay, so or how the IP addresses are typically being assigned. Right. Now the basic principle of IP addressing is based on this hierarchical principle that we mentioned at the beginning. So our broad objective is to forward the data packet from one network to another network via different intermediate networks. Okay. So that means, say, for example, if I want to forward packet from host 1 to host 2. So whenever I am forwarding packet from host 1 to host 2, maybe I have two different paths. I can go via AS11 or I can go via AS13. So to transmit data from host 1 to host 2, I will send the packet from AS10 to AS11 to AS12 or AS10 to AS13 to AS12. Well, so this basically makes two different things. The first is that the address should identify a network as well as the host inside a network. Well, so through the IP address, I should be able to find out that in which network I belong to, whether it is AS10 or AS11 or AS12 or AS13. And within that autonomous system, the address should uniquely identify individual host. Okay, so accordingly, the IP addressing has two different parts. One component is the network address and the second component is the host address. Okay, so typically in IP version 4, we broadly talk about IP version 4 in this course. That we, in short form, we call it as IPv4. So in IPv4, we divide the address space into two parts, the network address and the host address. Now IPv4 provides a 32-bit IP address. So this 32-bit is divided into network address and the host address. And historically, that how many bits we are going to use in the network address and how many bits we are going to use in the host address, that part was fixed. Okay, and that particular addressing scheme, we called it as the classful addressing. So the classful addressing, in case of classful addressing, we had fixed number of bits in the network address part and the remaining number of bits for the host address part. Okay, and how this classful address was designed? So it divided the entire address space into 5 different classes: class A, class B, class C, class D, and class E. So in case of class A, I had 8 bits for the network address. Well, in case of class B, I had 16 bits for the network address. In case of class C, I had 24 bits for the network address. And class D and class C was reserved with a special purpose. And how we identify individual classes? So if the first bit is 0, that means it is a class A address. Well, if the first 2 bits are 1, 0, then it is the class B address. If the first 3 bits are 1, 1, 0, then it is class C address. If it is 1, 1, 1, 0, then it is class D address. And if it is 1, 1, 1, 1, then it is class E address. Okay, so that way you just scan the first few bits and accordingly you decide what is the class of the address, and accordingly you decide that what is the boundary of the network address space. So that means how many bits you are using for the network address part. If your first bit is 0, that means it is a class A address. That means that the first 8 bits are the network address. If it is 1, 0, then it is class B address and the first 16 bits are the network address. If it is 1, 1, 0, then it is a class C address and first 24 bits are the network address. Now in case of class A, depending on this dependency, that it should start from 0 and the first 8 bits are the network address. So the range of host addresses can be 1.1.0.0.0 to 127.255.255.255. So that can be the range of host address in case of class A. In case of class B, it is similarly the first 2 bits is 1, 0. That means the remaining bit, if I consider it as 0, it becomes 128.0.0.02. If I consider all bits as 1, it is 191.255.255.255. Okay. Similarly for class C, the first 3 are 110. If I consider all as the remaining zeros, then it starts with 192.0.0.0. If I consider all ones, then it ends at 223.255.255.255. Similarly, class 4, it was reserved for the multicast address space. We will later discuss what is multicast address, and the address range is 224.0.0 to 239.255.255.255. And class E was reserved that address space was 240.0.0.02, 255.255.255.255. Okay. So that was the broad idea about the classful addressing. Now, in case of classful addressing, as I was mentioning, that there are two special type of addresses. One is the network addresses, another one is the broadcast address. Network address means, so in every class, the network address means what is the address of a network. So that means if I put all host bit as 0, we get the network address. Well, one example is in class A. In case of class A, the first 8 bits are the network bit. So if I put the host part as 0, I get 126.0.0.0. This is one network IP, network address. Similarly, in case of class B, another example can be in case of class B, I have 16 bit for the network address part. So remaining host bit as 0 if I put, then I get 189.233.0.0. That is one example network address in case of class B. So these addresses are the special addresses which denote the address of a network. Well, so that's why we do not assign these addresses to any host. Similarly, we have broadcast addresses. Broadcast address means through that address you can reach to all the hosts in that network. Well, so if I put all the host bit as 1, we get the broadcast IP addresses. Well, so in the class A example, say for this IP 126.0.0.0, if I put all host bit as 1, I get 126.255.255.255. That is the broadcast IP of this particular network IP. So that means if I use this broadcast IP, all the hosts within that network will get the packet. Similarly, for the second example, the first 16 bit are so the 16 bit I keep it as fixed. The host part I make it all ones. So if I make host part as all ones, it becomes 189.233.255.255. So that is the broadcast address of the network IP 189.233.0.0. That means using this address you can reach to all the hosts under the network IP 189.233.0.0. Well, now using these two special addresses, you can actually find out that how many valid hosts can be there in individual classes. Okay, so in case of class A, how many hosts we can have? We have 8 bits for the network IP. That means we have 24 bits left for host IP. So using that 24 bits, we can have 2 to the power 24 number of different addresses. Well, out of that, you can find out that how many network IP and how many broadcast IP can be there. Well, subtract that and you will get the total number of IP spaces within class A. Okay, so that was the broad idea behind this concept of classful addressing. So any doubt up to this point, this concept of classful addressing and the corresponding idea of network IP and broadcast IP? Okay, so I do not see any question from anyone else. So I hope things are clear to you up to this point. So let us stop here today because we are 11:57. So from tomorrow, we'll talk about the detail of the IP addresses, that how gradually we have removed that dependency on the classes, and we have moved to other address space which we call as the classless address or the classless domain, and how we assign an address to the individual host. Well, so that we talk in the we'll talk in the tomorrow's class. So thank you all for attending, and if you have any doubt, if something is coming to your mind, feel free to post it on Teams. So see you all tomorrow. Take care and bye-bye for today.